Mormons baptizing Jews. I mean, it's a natural headline, isn't it? Anne Frank, Holocaust. My golly, it really doesn't get much better than that for a columnist, I suppose. There's been a lot of hysterical rubbish, frankly, written about this, but Jonathan Kay from the National Post, as he so often does, wrote sensibly and intelligently. Welcome to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a strange theology. It's why I'm not a Mormon, but it's not a hateful theology. It's just different from other people's. And I would think this is a vicarious attack on Mitt Romney, isn't it?
The whole issue is we're only talking about it because of Mitt Romney. He, of course, is Mormon. John Huntsman, who dropped out of the race, is Mormon. And so in the last few months, people have been scrutinizing Mormon beliefs. And from a conventional Christian perspective, they are somewhat eccentric.
Sure.
Joseph Smith, who began the whole thing in the 19th century, was an odd guy. And one of their beliefs is that you can baptize non-Mormons, non-Christians, after they die. Essentially, it's a hot tub ritual. I mean, you put someone in a large pool, a stand-in for the person who's died, and someone else reads their name. And I'm told that it's done in a very respectful way.
Yeah,
but
sure
if you're not a Mormon, it does sound a little weird.
Well, it is weird. And religion, theology, in many ways, if you look at it in a secular, cold manner, seems weird. Jewish theology, Christian theology. But it's not done because people are saying, we hate Jews. It's, we want you to share the joy we believe we have as Mormons. And they baptize all sorts of non-Mormons, of all races. But the name Anne Frank is mentioned because it's so emotional. I think that's quite irresponsible.
Well, the charge is that this is a sort of posthumous effort to extinguish someone's Judaism. That, and in a metaphorical sense, at least, that you're trying to kill them or to kill their Jewish soul. And you can see why it's sensitive in the case of Holocaust survivors. Where I think this is wrong is in the intentions of the people doing it. These are people with an earnest belief that there is a heaven, that people can be saved, and they want everyone to be saved, regardless of whether you lived your life as a Mormon. So I look at the intentions of people. It is a loving intention. And the point I made in the column is that in a world where people are trying to blow up living Jews, it seems eccentric to make a big fuss over well-intentioned people who want to save the souls of dead Jews.
I think that's very well put. And let's tread on a few other toes. Look, mainstream evangelical theology, there are degrees within it, but the Pentecostal belief, the mainstream belief, would be that if you're not an evangelical Christian, if you haven't developed a personal relationship with Christ, you are damned. Well, there are political candidates who embrace that, but they're seldom criticized in such a way as Mormons are being right now by some in the Jewish community.
Yes. In fact, if you were to take a Mr. Spock approach to this, the sort of logic of it, it seems far more tolerant and universalistic to say everyone alive, whether you're Muslim or Jewish or Christian or Mormon or not, can be saved at some point in time.
Yeah.
That, to me, is a much more tolerant mindset than one that says, if a train hits you tomorrow and you haven't adopted a particular faith, you're damned to hell. But, so logically, I completely agree with you, but it's the optics of it.
Yeah.
It's the optics of someone being in a baptismal pool and someone reading the name of Anne Frank. And to give credit to the folks who do criticize the Mormons on this, it evokes the idea of extinction of Jewry. It evokes the historical memory of, for some people, it evokes the Nazis. What I argued is that's the exact opposite of the Nazis. The Nazis thought the Jews couldn't be saved. The Nazis didn't try and convert Jews because they thought they were biologically inferior,
of course.
That they were contaminated. And the Mormons take exactly the opposite view. They think that we're all the same, and that the only thing that separates us is religious faith and or baptism.
Yeah. The Catholic belief, I think, would be that there's only salvation within the Catholic Church, but all sorts of people are in the Church and are not completely aware of it. I mean, good deeds and decency and kindness, God would not turn people like this away. But this is for internal theological discussion, I suppose, not for mainstream journalism. But here's the problem. So there was another piece in your paper by Bernie Farber, who's a mutual friend of ours. But what Bernie was saying in there was, well, let's put it this way. I've never heard him, it's not here to attack him, but I've never heard him attack Barack Obama, who is sometimes ambivalent about Israel, the Jewish state, but they're attacking directly Mitt Romney, who's absolutely committed to the Jewish state. It seems such a waste of ammunition. They're misfiring, if not shooting themselves in the foot.
I think there's a whole debate people aren't having about what aspects of religion are fair game.
Yeah.
For 20 years, as is well known, Barack Obama attended a church presided over by Jeremiah Wright, sort of an Afrocentric church, and people in the United States are very loath to criticize that because they think they're criticizing an aspect of black culture. an outgrowth of the umbrage at white America that's come to us from the times of slavery. And at the same time, I think even liberals, there's also a reluctance to denounce aspects of evangelical faith that they think are intolerant. Even, Santorum's beliefs, he's a Catholic, they're not sure what can we criticize, what can we not criticize. They insist on this strict separation of church and state, but people become very uncomfortable about criticizing someone's religion. Even liberals, who are supposed to be very hyper-secular and intolerant, there's no ground rules here. And I think that's why Bernie Farber and I had this discussion in the National Post, and we took such different points of view, is I think we were having a discussion about what is fair game to attack. I don't think it's fair game to attack earnestly felt religious beliefs that manifest themselves in efforts to save souls.
If you disagree, you ignore it. It doesn't personally impose in any way on Jewish people today. I managed to offend some people last week when it came to Jewish issues, so I think we should continue with this theme. I mentioned this in the monologue. I don't mean religious, believing Orthodox Jewish people. There are Jews who are totally secular, who don't really believe in God, who reject Talmud, who probably don't even keep kosher. I mean, it's just not part of their life apart from the cultural aspect, but would expect, if not demand, that their children would ask a non-Jewish spouse to convert to Judaism. I have problems with that. Not a religious person. I fully understand that. I respect it. But if you don't believe, why ask someone to convert? You know that happens. I know that happens. That seems to be a double standard. If at the same time Mormons can't use their theology they believe in, but you can maybe impose your theology that you don't believe in.
It's interesting. I was actually thinking about this. I recently read a book about the history of Jerusalem, as a matter of fact.
Wonderful book.
Yeah, Simon Sebag Montefiore's book. And as I was reading it, I was thinking about the narratives of the major religions, Abrahamic faiths. And for Jews, it's survival. And for many Christians, it's suffering. And for many Muslims, it's submission. And that was one of the themes of the book. And going back to the Jewish theme of survival, that echoes in many ways. And one of the ways it echoes is in intermarriage. And the idea that when you marry someone who is outside Judaism, although it's a wonderful thing for two loving people to join, it threatens the survival of Jews if you subtract a Jew from the mix of Jewry through the act of marriage. And I think people should remember that. And I think this is one of the reasons that people are criticizing the Mormons for this baptismal practice, is that it threatens the central narrative of Judaism, which is survival. And for many people, it all goes back to that. And how does this affect the survival of Judaism?
Right.
Either symbolically, as in the case of the Mormons, or in a very pragmatic way, as in the case of intermarriage.
I suppose I've got a point. Will I remember my Jewish father when I go to Mass on Sunday? John, thank you so very much indeed. A pleasure.
Thank you.